Emily. Hi everyone, this is Gail. Welcome to my channel tonight. We're going to talk about the joys and trials of solo female travel. So, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the really great about traveling solo female as it relates to van life, like where I am right now. Let me say hi to everyone in the chat. Let's see who all's here. Let's see, we have got Peter Parker. Hi, Peter. She might have to use the outhouse. Ha. Bigfoots are near you, Gail. Run, run, run to the house. Yay, I'm here. I'm here. It took me a few minutes to find a good, secure spot to stream from. Woo! Which is actually one of the trials about solo female travel. So if you're going to hit the road as a solo female traveler, something to keep in mind is that you might not always be able to find a Wi-Fi connection when you want it. So that's a real challenge. As you all know, that sometimes if you follow the channel, if you haven't followed it, if you haven't joined, click the subscribe button so you can be part of this as I go along. But as you all know, if you follow the channel, I haven't always been able to find the most reliable internet. So let's talk about that straight up here. First thing, I'm going to move the lamp over there. So for internet, I do a couple of things. I look for places that have Wi-Fi, obviously. But the other thing that I do is I have Google Fi on my internet on my phone. So that allows me to tether or stream as much as I need to, which is great. Now, this is a change for me. The mobile cell service that I did have was Straight Talk. And Straight Talk was fabulous. I mean, it was great. Other than like the Western Texas area, I didn't have any problems with the signal with Straight Talk most of the places where I was. It was good. It was reliable. I love that it was monthly. I love that I didn't have to worry about, a huge bill because I could control my costs. But I think that Google Fi has it edged out a little bit. I can get better signal in some of the places where I just about couldn't get online. So, like, for example, Western North Carolina, I would have trouble around like the Boone and Withville area, right in between there, getting and keeping a signal. But when I traveled through there not long ago, a couple of weeks, I noticed that I had a good, consistent signal all the way through from Boone going on over into Withville. That's a big deal to me. I'm not going to lie, it's a safety thing, and it's also the convenience because I like knowing I can pick up my phone and get somebody if I need to. So yeah, I really like having the Google Fi. The other thing that Google Fi did for me was I was able to go all across Canada last year without having to worry about service if I was in an area that typically got signal. So there are parts of the Alaska Highway, like going into Yukon, for example, where you're not going to get cell coverage. It's just not going to happen. But in the areas that did have cell service, I did really, really good with the Google Fi. So that to me is huge. Now the phones are a little different, and because you have to have one that's really designed for that network, or you have to have a SIM card, which you probably already know about. So I went ahead and got the Google Pixel 6a. I really like it. And one of the things that I like about it is it's got some safety features on it that I love. So all phones have varying degrees of safety features. But if you can't get a signal, it doesn't really do do you much good to have the safety features. And that's one of the things that I really like about the Google Fi service. Uh-oh, Peter, what is your news? Peter's got some news to share. We'll see when he types it in here. So that's one of the really cool things that's a trial and kind of a joy because I like the cell phone service a lot. But this live stream isn't really about cell service other than you have to have it, simply because one of the trials is the Wi-Fi. Especially if you're going to work on the road or do any kind of streaming, which is also work sometimes, then you all know the importance of having a signal. Oh no, Peter. So what are they saying about that, Peter? I'm so sorry. You have really been through it the past couple of years, and I'm so sorry. So, wow. But going back to the live stream here, part of the joys. Let's just talk about the joys of solo female travel first, and then we'll get into the trials. Okay, I want to give you the real scoop and real talk information about traveling as a solo female, and I think it's important to talk about both. So one of the joys of solo female travel is the freedom, absolute freedom that you get when you're out on the road. There is nothing else like it. Because, for example, when I drive to Alaska, I always say to my family that it doesn't really matter what happens at the house because somebody else has to deal with it, you know? So it's this huge relief of just everything that you get when you're on the road because you don't have to worry about what's going on at home. You have to trust that it's in good hands and just absolutely, embrace and enjoy that freedom. Okay, Busy Lady is here. Hey, Busy Lady. Oh no, Peter, I'm so sorry. You're going to have to message me more about that. Or email me, rather. Email. Yeah. So, Peter, I'm so sorry. And Busy Lady's in the house, and she's also saying that. So, going back to joys of travel, it's that absolute freedom. Now, the first couple of times that you're out on the road, that freedom can scare you to death because you get this exhilaration and this excitement, right? And it's building up and it's building up and it's building up. And you finally pull out of the driveway and you get a few miles from home. Maybe you're a half hour or maybe you're a couple of hours from home. And then all of a sudden, bam, it hits you. You're on a road trip by yourself or you're out by yourself and you've got, if something goes wrong, it's on you to take care of it when you're on the road. If something goes right, it's on you to embrace and experience it. So that freedom is a huge joy, but it's got that other edge to it. So, okay. I hope it can. Oh no, Peter, I'm so sorry. So I hope that when you're out and you have the opportunity to go out, that you'll take it. Just know that there may be this little moment of panic. But once you get past that moment of panic, the exhilaration sets back in and you're like, okay, all right, check the box. I got that out of the way. And now it's time to embrace and go and enjoy it. So the absolute freedom that comes from hitting the road solo is amazing. You can stop when you want to. You don't have to worry about the hubs or the kids. When you arrive at the destination, that's up to you. And for a lot of women, the destination is being out on the road. it's not the place that you wind up at night, okay? And that is absolutely freeing, it's exciting, it's exhilarating. So I would say, that one of the joys is, the freedom of solo female travel. And I am talking about it as specifically as van life, okay? The other one of the other things that I really love about being on the road, on a road trip by myself as a solo female traveler is being able to just it's a self-discovery journey, from the first planning part of where are you going to go, how are you going to get there, what are you going to do. It's all this big journey. It's about who you are and figuring out kind of how you relate to the world, if that makes any kind of sense. So it's sort of a coming of age thing, as far as being out on the road. It's amazing. It is it is just absolutely amazing. Um, but you're finding out so much about yourself, about what you can handle, about what you can't, about what your breaking points are, and then what do you do to move beyond your breaking point. Because when you're out on a road trip as a female traveling by herself, you're going to encounter all sorts of experiences that you did not expect. And that's going to be different for every person out there. So there may be some commonalities, but by and large, your journey of self discovery is about the self, it's about you. And it's different. And I really can't explain, put into words, how profound that really is. But one of the other things, when you're on a road trip and you are learning about different cultures and experiencing different cultures, you're not just walking around going, oh, that's a pretty building, or oh, that's a pretty totem pole, or look at that wood carving, that's kind of cool. You're more in the middle of it. So it's like you can take the time to really understand the wood carving, and learn about the person who did it and the culture that created, like the totem pole that we would call, about how was it created, like what are the nuts and bolts, um, who created it, and why. And so you get to experience all of that on a much deeper level, because solo travel takes takes place at your pace when you're on a road trip and in a van. So you get to experience things a lot differently. You know, nobody is standing there saying, "Ma, I got to go to the bathroom," or "How long are we going to be at this museum?" Y'all who have families, you know exactly what I mean by all of that, right? So on on a road trip, um, when you're a solo female traveler, you don't have to worry about all of that, because you're setting the pace. The other thing is, when you're driving, you don't have to cover 12 hours or 14 or 18, or like I did one day driving to Alaska, which is about 23 hours of driving. That was insane. You don't have to do that. If you feel like you just want to go 200 miles and stop because something caught your eye, you can do that, and you can't do it with family. So let me see. Um, Busy Lady says she would have to make lots of potty stops due to her wonderful fibroids. And see, that's okay, because it's you that you're setting the tone for that, and you're setting the pace. So take that into consideration. And on the flip side of things, you don't have kids saying, "Oh, we're stopping again," So you have that freedom, and by definition, you have permission to take care of yourself, and a lot of women don't. And I think for a lot of women, being out on the road on a road trip like this, maybe the first time that they have ever done anything out of the normal, out of the average. And, you don't have to be in a van. You can take a road trip and just go for the day or spend a night or two in a hotel. For me, the van means a little more freedom, okay? Because with me and my health issues, if I'm in the van and I feel good, I can keep on going. But if I'm not feeling good and I need to pull over for a little while and kind of take a breathing treatment, relax, anything like that, then I can. And if I want to stop for an hour or two, then I can do that, because I'm on my schedule. Now, I may have, like with Alaska, I have a certain deadline that I have to be there, but how far I drive a day, when I stop, where I stop, if I have lunch, if I don't have lunch, that's all up to me. And that's a really interesting experience, and sometimes it does get a little intimidating, sort of, when you're on the road. But when you're on a road trip, nothing is off the table. Nothing. You can, if you want to go to a museum, like I like stopping, for example, at the Stafford Air and Space Museum over in Oklahoma. I'll go in and I'll get something for my grandbaby. Yes, who's doing fabulous, by the way. Little grandmom moment here. But she's just doing amazing. I can't believe she's going to be 2. But we're going to go out and see her 1st of May. But anyway, when I like to stop out there, and if I want to take 3 hours and see the museum while I'm there, that's awesome. If I just want to spend the night out there, they're a Harvest Host site. Oh my gosh, I freaking love my Harvest Host membership. I use that a lot with the van. And if I want to spend a night, I can do that, because it's part of the journey, not just your road miles, but of yourself. And that's where that self-discovery really comes in. And it's kind of indescribable, basically, how it is. So the freedom, the structure of the trip, and that's all on you. So there are some logistics that you have to keep in mind. And I think for me, the logistics are part of the positive, but also part of the negative, if you will, because when you're planning logistics and you're a solo traveler, then you have to make sure that you're stopping in good places. Like I was talking to somebody today about safety on the road, and what came up with was a conversation that I had decades ago with a guy who was an FBI agent. And what he said was border cities. Now, I'm not talking about like the Texas-Mexico border, but by states, okay? What he told me years ago is that the cities that are between or next to the borders of 2 states tend to have a little higher crime rate because, he said at the time, bad people could do something and then be across that state line in just a few minutes. And in some places, they could be across a couple of state lines in just a few minutes. And that, number one, I had not thought about that before. And number two, that always stayed with me. So when I'm looking at the logistics of a road trip, I try to keep in mind uh, where I'm stopping. And am I going to be in one of those cities? And if I am, do I want to stop short, or do I feel okay and I feel like I can drive and keep on going? Let's see. Busy Lady hit another one. She says you can also play any kind of music. Yes, yes, you can. I love that too. Because, yeah, and it's awesome being able to do that. Because let me tell you, you can't always, when you're in the car with somebody else, you kind of have to consider their taste, which, you know, we all have our own likes and dislikes. You know, if you're in the car and somebody wants to play Beyonce for 10 hours out of an 11-hour road trip, you kind of have to negotiate that. And you don't have to if you're by yourself. Same thing about podcasts and audiobooks. Oh my gosh. Um, the actual book for Pride and Prejudice, I put on an audiobook format, and that got me through most of the way to Alaska. And it is not something my husband would have been interested in at all. And I thought that was really cool. And then, so I'm like, okay, what am I going to do once that podcast ran, or that audiobook ran out? And so I decided that I would download War and Peace and start listening to it, because I never read beyond the first. Has anybody in here read beyond the first chapter? Because I haven't, and I got some part of it in on the road trip. I also discovered I really probably didn't like it, but anyway, that that's part of your joy, your self discovery. So, um, planning, I get real tickled at myself, because when I'm sitting down and planning my road trip, I will take the map, brochures, and I will put sticky notes everywhere on those. So I have highlights of lots of different places. So I can just pull that tab and go check it out if I want to. So what happens is, when we're on a family vacation later, wait a minute, I got something flying around here. I thought it was too early in the season to have a bug in here. Oh well. Anyway, um, okay, okay. I thought I was going to land, but it didn't. It's flying around. Anyway, I have all these sticky notes on everything, and I can just grab a tab. And my husband really gets tickled at me when when it's just us, okay? Because he laughs at me for all of my over planning in that respect that I put in. But when we're together and it's the two of us, he feels a lot of pressure to do all the things that I have marked, without realizing that when I'm planning the road trip, I overmark. And the reason that I do that is because I don't know for sure what time I'm going to be in any certain city. So when I am planning and I'm marking the tabs and I'm doing that, I'm putting like the times that they're open, and I'm putting, of course, the time that I put the whole hours open and closed on it, and the exit number that I need, and so forth. And so I have a lot longer list than what I'm ever going to get to. Um, and it gives me some flexibility to do more exploring, basically, because if I'm going to be at a place from like 9 to 5, and they have a science center, and I want to go in and I want to see that science center, then I know I have to get there from 9 to 5. But if there is, let's say, an outdoor static airplane display, and it's open 24 hours, then okay, if I get to the museum between 9 to 5, great, yay. If I don't, I can see the static airplanes. So it's that kind of planning. Uh, So I don't over plan to try to do everything, because one of the wonderful things about being on a road trip by yourself is not having to worry. We kind of already talked about that. So and that's part of the freedom, because I think you get freedom on two levels. Okay, there is the breaking of societal norms that you're doing when you're on a female road trip. And in that, it's unexpected. You know, people don't expect women to go out and travel by themselves. Even in 2024, it's not something that's really done, except in the past few years. It's become more common. But I will still tell you that, at least among my age, there's not a lot of women traveling solo. Just saying. So you have that kind of freedom. And then there's the secondary freedom that we're talking about because of your scheduling. Yes, he is. He is up there snoozing, and I would I would turn the camera so you could see him, but it's too dark up there. You can't see anything. So, but yeah. So if you do hear snoring, which you might, he's not snoring right now, but you might. He's just tired. So yeah. Um, So anyway, there's that secondary freedom of not having to worry about anybody else's schedule. So um, yeah, those are some of the amazing joys. Those are some of the good about solo female travel as far as van life. Plus, you get to eat what you want to, you get to stop where you want to, which is really pretty cool. Um, so some of the negatives are pretty big negatives, and you have to plan for those. When you're on any road trip, anything can happen. But when you're on a road trip by yourself, you have to look at it sometimes as, if it can go wrong, it's going to. And you've got to prepare for that. So there's a little extra planning in logistics that you have to figure out. And that's just because you have nobody to rely on except yourself. Hold on, I'm gonna sneeze. No, I'm not. Okay, because you have nobody to rely on except yourself. So if you are stuck out on the side of the road with a vehicle that is broken down or a tire that has to be changed, you have to think, okay, if this happens, what do I do? And with me, I have AAA towing and I have towing on my insurance. So if one doesn't work, the other one will. I have that redundancy. Also with AAA, I have trip interruption insurance. So if I get stuck out like I did when I was in Oklahoma and it was way over 100 degrees and air conditioning went out on my van, then I had coverage to reimburse me for that. But it's a reimbursement. So you're like, okay, what do I do in the meantime? Because I got to save money for a repair for the vehicle, and I've got to have a place to stay, and I've got Uber or cab fares, and I have to be able to pay that out of my pocket before AAA will reimburse me for the hotel, because it's a reimbursement. Doesn't help at all with the repairs. Okay, it's just reimbursements for hotel and extra food. So you have to think about that. And so before I leave, I have the vehicle checked out bumper to bumper. Okay. But now things still go wrong because you can't spot everything. You can check your belts, you can check your hoses, you can make sure your oil is changed, all your fluids are topped up, and you get that flush and fill before you leave on the radiator and transmission and stuff. But you can't see inside the engine, and you can't see like inside a water pump, So you plan for you try to mitigate everything you can. And I think you do that even more so if you're traveling solo, and unless, of course, you know how to work on your own car, which bravo and bravo for you. But yeah, so there's a little extra planning when you're doing those logistics. It's also making sure you have good cell phone service. You know, I switched, I talked in the beginning, I switched to Google Fi so I could have better cell phone service. So it's those kind of things you have to keep in mind. And of course, safety. You know, safety is huge. And I would love to say that service dog Pipsy would help me if I was in a dangerous situation, but I don't know that he would. I really just don't know that he would. Um, the nature of a service dog is to be able to go with people if something happens to their person. He does have a little bit of situational awareness, I found out. We were actually stopped um, at a place, I'm not going to say where, um, but we were stopped at a place, and this employee was giving really strange vibes. He was working at this particular place by himself, so there was nobody else that I could go to. And I took Pipsy for his relief so he could take a break. I don't want to say it because he'll head for the door. But um, while I was out there, the guy came over to where we were, and he was asking me some really strange questions about Pipsy, you know. And you always start out with, you know, is he a service dog? Is he a service dog required because of a disability, and what work or task does he do? So he started out with that, but he was kind of weird about how he was asking that. He was like, so, you know, tell me what kind of tasks or work that he can do. And it was just kind of the vibes and the way he said it. So I told him, and we were walking a little further away from him. And then he starts talking about how he lost some money. Did I see any money on the ground? Because he had lost some money, and he was looking for it. That's what he was looking for it for. And he had his cell phone out, but he wasn't using it as a flashlight to look for whatever amount of money he said he lost. But we were not in it. There was no vending machines or anything like where we were. So he wouldn't have had to have had money out at all. I mean, we're at a dog relief area. You know, they don't put vending machines in a dog relief area. Have you ever noticed that? You have to go up to a building or over across the parking lot to, you know, the little kiosk there where you sell and buy, or where they do gas and have the little thing set up. But not in an empty lot there. So the guy kept coming closer, and we're like working our way back into the parking lot over to where it's light. And Pipsy decides he needs to finish doing what he had to do. And this guy kept walking up, and he got within about 4 feet, I would say. And Pipsy gets up, and he stands, and he puts himself right in front of me in like a blocking pattern, just right there, right across. And the guy kept coming forward, so we kind of hightailed it, you know, across the parking lot at that point. Now that was actually not solo female travel, that my husband was with me, so I was really glad to have a second person. But this dog is just not going to help, I don't think, in case of problems, because he never had a sign about being aggressive or anything. He just was like, oh, okay, this guy's coming too close to mommy. So I'm going to do what I'm trained to do. And that is, I'm going to make space, because dogs have been trained to do, the service dogs, a lot of them have been trained to do that for like crowds and stuff. So the person with the mobility issue won't fall. And so he's definitely, yeah, I'm talking about you. You want to come up here? Hang on. You want to come up here? Okay. Well, you can go. You can go back to sleep. All right. Is this what you wanted me to have? Okay. Pretzel, anybody? Okay. So now he's going back up to the front. Dog pretzel. You know, and he certainly didn't alert when I had gas stolen out of the van. So yeah. So he's just not gonna be. So where was I going with that? Oh yeah, safety, you know, staying in a place that doesn't have the higher crime rate. So staying away from the cities by the border of the state, staying away from those, paying attention to your surroundings. When that guy was really acting weird, I left as soon as I could. Um, I actually have had a couple of situations since I've gotten him because I had one issue with this guy at a rest area. Um, yeah, he was kind of following us in his big white truck, but then fortunately some other people came and it was really good. Anyway, anyway, um, so safety is a consideration for solo female travel. So there are ways, there are things you can do to mitigate that, and that is take a self defense course. I actually advocate that for women, whether you're going to be on the road by yourself or not, because the world is just weird. So take a self defense course. Those are oftentimes offered for free from your local domestic violence program or sexual assault program. Sometimes a police department will offer them for free. And if you want to take a class and they don't have it on their schedule, contact the local domestic violence program, sexual assault program, and say, hey, I want to take a self defense class. How can we make this happen? And so, back when I was doing the nonprofit work, I had a couple of people contact me about that. And on one of them, I was like, yeah, I've got it scheduled. We're having that coming up in September and blah, blah, blah. And come on out and join us. And the other one, I said, you know, we haven't had one in a while. It's been a little over a year. If you're interested, I know I got one person. I'm going to make my daughters take it. So I got 3 people. Let me see what I can do about putting it together. So that's exactly what we did. And those were offered at no cost as a community outreach. We did accept donations, but they were not required. So yeah, get a cheat. They will mess someone up. You know, I have heard that before. Yeah. I'd be nervous alone driving at night, honestly. Okay, here's my thing about nighttime and driving and being alone. I'm totally good with that. Because your traffic is less. So I feel like there's less chances of, you know, kind of getting into trouble in places. Because there is less traffic. Your busy areas, you know, like your Walmarts and stuff, they're well lighted. They have security. So if I'm going to be traveling at night, I try to stop someplace like that. And I do like to park the van underneath the lights and close to the building, partially for security, okay, but also partially because I have solar on the roof. So the more light it gets, the better for the solar. So I like parking under the light for that reason too. If I have to stop at a rest area, then I'm going to park as close to the building as possible, you know, and mitigate the risk that way. But the really great thing about being in the van, and I'm going to say it's a huge, huge plus, is if I don't feel comfortable somewhere, I get in the van, start the engine, and we're gone. So yeah, so I like that. Now if I was by myself in a car and I was like going to hotels and stuff, I think that would be different. because you can't just drive away. If you're in a hotel and your hotel's in a bad area, you can leave, but you're going to feel funny about leaving. If you're in a van and you feel like the area is a little sketchy, you're not going to feel bad about leaving. You're just going to walk up there and you're going to start it and go. So, and I've done that a couple of times. I also feel like truck stops are really are pretty safe. I like being in a truck stop actually more so than like a rest area or a Cracker Barrel or a Walmart, because there are trucks, always somebody going in and out and stuff, and they've got the lights and the security cameras, and I like it. Doesn't matter how much noise I make. I'm not going to bother anybody in the next parking spaces or stuff. So I like that. You should busy. I think every woman should. Even if you never need it, which I pray to God, if you will never have to, that no woman would. But the confidence level, the boost, I have seen women go into a self-defense class, kind of bent down and just kind of like they're carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. And I have seen them emerge from the class walking 10 feet off the ground. It's the coolest thing. It really is. So I kind of miss that about the ministry, but it's really cool. So definitely take a self-defense class. Team up with girls. Take more than one person with you. The more you can get for a class, the better it is. Plus, you're not going to be lonely if you go. You're not going to be as self-conscious as you go. So, yeah, do that. Because everybody needs to. Everybody. So, yeah, Stellar can tell you I made her take like 3 classes, 4, something like that, and karate lessons, just because I think women should. So one of the other bad things about being on the road is your loneliness factor and your kind of your sense of unease or almost panic when you realize that you've just taken that first step and you're on the road by yourself. Then kind of during that period, you can start to feel kind of lonely. So how you deal with that can make or break your trip. Now, I think as you're on the road more and you get more comfortable with who you are and being in your own skin, that really helps. So you're not as lonely, because there's a huge difference. You can be alone and you can be in a crowd, and you can be in that crowd and feel very lonely, and you can be alone and feel very comfortable and confident within yourself. So the more you travel and the more you do the self-discovery, the more comfortable you start feeling, so you don't have the loneliness factor like you do right at first sometimes. And sometimes, especially if you're doing like a short road trip by yourself, that excitement comes in and it just carries you right on through, So, oh, and I have a note here. Thank goodness for sticky notes, right? On the safety, something I want to talk about is like how to be safer in your van. And I mentioned the lights, parking under a light, and I mentioned, the cameras, which are a big deal because people are not as likely to cause problems if they know they're going to be watched. But lock your car doors, cover the basics, lock your car doors, double check them. I like to put my keys in my pocket and go literally outside and check every single door, as well as checking it from the inside. And the reason I do that is in the van, I have found that in the shadows and the dark and whatnot, things can look like they're locked, but they're not, or they can look like they're unlocked and they're actually locked. So I'll go around the outside and just make sure that everything's locked up tight. I cover my windows, and you can see I've got black covering back here on the back. And I do that because black, if you see the black window, it's just black. You don't necessarily, it doesn't register that there might be somebody in the vehicle. Whereas if you see silver, it kind of sets off this kind of what's going on vibe, if that makes any sense. But up toward the front of the van, I use just the silver reflectix. And the reason I do this, okay, is black, it just looks like a dark van inside. The reflectix, everybody puts those reflective sunscreens and stuff in their front windshield. So nobody's going to think twice about seeing reflectix up in the front windshield. And for me, the way the covers are, is it's easier for me to reach up and grab the reflectix and pull it down than it is for me to take the tabs out of the Velcro tabs down that are on the black and, you know, holding it to the window. I don't have to undo each of those. I can just reach up, rip it out, and I'm gone. It's just a little faster for me. So that's the two reasons. Another thing that I do for safety, and I wish I'd done this when I was on the Alaska Highway and got the gas stolen, but I didn't think of it. Like the one night that I don't think about this particular thing, I get gas stolen. And that is usually I take a large dog bowl and I set the large dog bowl outside the van on the ground to kind of let people know, hey, there's a large dog in this van, even if there's not. When I was in between service dogs, I still put the bowl out there just to set off that kind of warning, right? So, and Dizzy says, right, safety first, and right on, LOL. So yeah. The other thing that I do for safety, you know, somebody asked me, you know, do you carry pepper spray? Do you have a taser? It's like, no, I don't. But I do have wasp and hornet spray at just about every door. And I have the fire alarms. Now, I do have the wasp and hornet spray because I'm allergic to wasp and hornets. But it's also got this other potential usage if I ever need it. So, yeah, so I've got that. And then the settings on your phone to let people know where you are. Google Maps. If you have Google Maps, then you have access to Google location sharing. And I have that set up on my phone for both my husband and Stellar Piper. So they know where I am at all times or can find out where I am. All they have to do is pull it up on their phone and follow the little dot, and they'll know where I am. And I swear, my poor husband, I think he stares at the dot because a couple of times he's called and said, hey, you know, do you realize you're heading toward the main area of a very large fire? You need to turn around. And then I couldn't turn around, so he was able to navigate me through it better than Google Maps was doing. And then another time when he's called has been like, hey, you've been at the rest area for like almost 2 hours now. Is everything okay? And I'm like, what? I'm sleeping. Yeah, everything's fine. Sure. Good night. So he's been able to check on that. So that lessens his anxiety and it gives me more of a safety feeling. The other thing is using the apps on my phone. There's one app where all I have to do is push the start button on my phone X number of times, and it sends out a GPS and a 6-second clip of what's going on. And you can set it to go out however long you want to. So that way, the people you have that are designated to receive those they can hear what's going on and they can see and they can kind of figure it out, as well as having the GPS, which is really cool. And I tell you, having that location sharing, I may have shared before, but I was on the phone with my daughter on speakerphone when she was rear-ended one day, and I was like, "Were you hit?" And she was like, "Yeah. Tell my husband where I am. I'm going to go and try to get the license plate number where the other car leaves and stuff like that," which they didn't. But I was able to call her husband and say, "Hey, just got off the phone with her. If you don't have your Google location sharing up with her, here's the GPS coordinates of where she is." So really helpful from that standpoint. So the other thing is, you've got to be aware that something's going to go wrong at some point. So it does help to have some basic mechanical skills, at least enough to, if you can't get anything else, at least have enough skills so that you can add air conditioning refrigerant to your vehicle in case you need to, that you know how to use that. Have a roll of tape, electrical tape, and understand how to find a leak in a hose. So if you are out and a hose splits, you can use your electrical tape, wrap it up, and hopefully get to your destination. So a couple of little things, a few little things here and there, a couple of little skills like that really help. For tires, if you're going on a road trip, it's smart to have a little tire inflator. They don't cost a lot, but having one can really help. There are different kinds. Some of them are really slow and some of them are quicker. So it's kind of like you get what you pay for thing. The other thing is have a jump starter. And I have a jump starter. It's all right back here under the bed. I've got a little kit. And if I'm somewhere and the van won't start, that jump starter has enough juice to jump this V8 engine, and I can, get to where I can get a battery. But I also learned the hard way about tools. Dummy me, last trip going out to Alaska, I have this car breakdown, and I'm going to link the video up in the corner up here. So look for the dot. I forget which corner it's in, but it's one of these two up here, top corners. I messed up. I didn't have a mechanic's tool set, and my solenoid went bad. Turned out to be loose wire, but I didn't know that because I didn't know how to check. I'd never dealt with a solenoid. Okay. But this woman did, who helped me. And one of the things that she pointed out, I was so upset. I was worried. Of course, this is on a Sunday morning. I'm going to link this video so you can see it. And I didn't know what to do. And in this area, none of the repair shops were open on a Sunday morning. Like where I live, everything's open. Okay. Not in this small town. So she was able to fix it for me after I went into Sam's and bought a mechanic's tool set. Now, why I didn't have that idea before I left home, I don't know. I should have double checked it. My husband and I talked about tools, but yeah, it was on my carport at home. And I should have had the idea to double check that. But what I learned is that I wasn't upset because it had broken down. I was upset because I didn't know how to deal with the breakdown. And when she said that, it clicked in. And yeah, it was right. That was right. So having some knowledge about your vehicle is definitely something that you want to do, both when you're planning logistics, looking at safety, and just general information from when you're on the road. If you have that information already, you're good. If you don't have that information, that's one of the trials. If something goes wrong, you're not going to know how to fix it. So that that becomes, at that point, it becomes a trial. But do I like solo female travel? I'm sitting here in my van talking to you. So yeah, I like solo female travel, and I like it a lot. So I have a van, I have a service dog, and I'm not afraid to use either one. That's what I like to say. So anyway, it's part of being bodacious and not letting life get in the way of living, out on the road, no matter disability, age, or budget. And you just, go out there and have fun. So that's what I'm doing. So that's some of the trials and joys about solo female travel. And I'm going to put a little more in-depth article on my blog in a few days. So check that. That's the bodaciousbraudstravelblog.com. All right. So I'm going to thank you all for hanging out with me tonight. Y'all are an awesome group. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, go out. Be bodacious. Don't let life get in the way of living. Embrace life. Enjoy it. Have fun. If you've got any questions about solo female travel, drop them down in the comments below, okay? Thank you all so much for watching. You have a good night. I'll see you Saturday at 7:30 p.m. And, of course, a couple of videos coming up this week. Good night, everybody.